All right, the other day we talked about how verbs in Spanish have endings, and those endings help us to indicate who is speaking or who is being talked about in the sentence. For example, we had two phrases that you all have learned previously. We learned ¿Cómo estás? And ¿Cómo está usted? And we noticed that when the verb ends in as, estás, for example, it's referring to you, the to form. And we also noticed that when it's ending in an a, like ¿Cómo está usted?, it's referring to you formal. And the other day when we were in class, we discussed the personal or subject pronouns, and here they are. The subject pronouns are, in English, I, you, he, she, and in English we have it, and then usted, you formal. Then on the plural side we have we, you or you plural or y'all, and we have they. Now in Spanish we have equivalents, of course. For I we have yo, yo. For you we have tú, which is the informal one. And for he we have él with an accent on the e. For she we have ella. Notice ella has a double L and it's pronounced ya. The double L is a ya sound, ella. And then it, of course, since all Spanish nouns are going to have a gender, male or female, we don't have an it in Spanish, so there's no equivalent. And we do have usted, which is you formal. Now, note here that we group the usted form along with he, she, and it. The reason being is that the ending that the verb uses for usted is the same as he and she, so that's why we put it here. On the plural side, we have we, which is nosotros or nosotras. Both of them meaning we. Of course, nosotros could be we, a boy and a girl saying we, or two guys saying we. And nosotras would be like two girls saying we. Then on for you plural, or y'all, we might say, we have ustedes. And for they, the last one, we have ellos or ellas, and it works the same as nosotros does as far as gender is concerned. Two guys, ellos, they, or two girls, saying they, referring to two girls as they, would be ellas. Remember once again that the double L makes a y sound. All right, so we have this chart, and this chart has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spots on it. And these 6 spots always correspond to these subjects, where these pronouns are right here. So let's move on over to an example verb. Here is an example verb for us. We have the verb hablar, which is to speak. And the verb hablar is what we call the infinitive form of the verb speak. In English, an infinitive is the one who has to in front of it. So examples of infinitives could be to walk, to run, to speak, to be. All those are infinitives. It's the simplest form of a verb. You haven't really done anything to that verb. It's just its simplest form. Okay? If you look up the word speak in a Spanish-English dictionary, you're going to find this verb hablar. And it's going to be in this form. Now, as I told you earlier, the as ending means you, like in ¿Cómo estás? And the a ending on the end of a verb in Spanish can mean usted. It can also mean he or she, as we saw right here. So let's look at this verb hablar. The first thing we do is take that ar ending off. That tells us it's an infinitive. That's the marker of an infinitive. And we add these endings right here. O, as, a, amos, and on for the last two. And by adding these endings to the verb, it tells us who's speaking. So I know automatically in Spanish if a verb ends in an O, that it is I, yo. Just like over here when we looked at the pronouns, the very first form was a yo, I. Same likewise, this spot on this verb chart is for the yo form, the I form. This spot right here that has an AS, hablas, since we said AS means to, remember to is in this second spot, and we looked at the pronouns, the subjects. So hablas means you speak. Habla ends in an A. That A on the end of it tells me that it's you, usted. Now, if we look back at the pronouns over here, we see that we have three options. We have he, she, or usted. So I could say, él habla, he speaks, or she, ella habla, she speaks, or I could say, usted habla, usted speaks, you formal speaks. So this is the appropriate verb form that's going to go for those subjects. So if I want to say we speak, I'm going to add this amos ending to it, and I'm going to say hablamos, and that's going to be we speak. That amos ending tells us that it's we. Here, hablan, and the last one also has an an ending, hablan. So that means if I look back at the pronouns for these last two spots here, you see ustedes will have an an ending. So ustedes hablan, y'all speak. Or I could say they speak, and it would also be hablan. But I have to put this with it usually. Ellos hablan, they speak. Or if I'm talking about those two girls over there, they. Ellas hablan. So do you follow? Hopefully you can see that all we have to do when we study a verb, even a new verb we've never seen before, is simply apply these endings. So what I've done right here, let's get a little closer, and you can see right here, I have just pulled out the endings. O, as, a, amos, and the last two are on. So those are just the endings that we can stick on to a present tense verb. That's all we got to do is put those endings on there, and they're going to tell us what the verb's doing. So here's an example right here. I'll give you a verb you've never seen before. I haven't told you about this one. It's caminar. Caminar means to walk. So I can stick these endings on it, and I already know how to use that verb. I can say camino, I walk. Caminas, you walk. Camina, he or she walks. Caminamos, we walk. Or caminan, they walk. Or caminan, y'all walk. All I have to do is add these endings to pretty much any verb in the language, and we know how to use it. So knowing these endings in the present tense for these verbs that end in AR is very important and very useful for us.